Hi friends, this is DaintyTank. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back to Who is the Red Queen? This is part 5 in our series. If you haven't seen it, we played through all of this as a blind playthrough. And, of course I fell for the Hatter. Of course. You would too. Look at her eyes. Just look at those eyes. So, it is, I warn you, trigger warning, bloody, gory, dismemberment, suicide, blah blah blah. There's a lot here. If you're in part 5, I'm assuming you've already known this and you've seen it. But that's okay. You know what we're going to do today? Other routes. So last time we got Alice's ending. So we're going to try for other things and other endings. Let's see what we come up with. Again, this is a free to play game, so you can play this yourself. There's a link to it down below in the description. You can play this and have fun on your own. It's always good to support these awesome games, because if you don't, then it doesn't actually get spread around, seen enough to actually become a fully fledged greater part of a series. So if you like it, play it, review it. It's worth it. I promise. Tell them DaintyTank sent you. For that, let's start. I am going to be using the skip function. So, warning. This is beautiful visual, by the way. Click. Falling, falling, falling. Down the rabbit hole. Skip. So we meet all of our peeps. Ooh. We're gonna sneak around a peek. I tiptoe over to the other side of the table and surveyed what was around. Couldn't help but feel the headless slob of human watching me, but I ignored the Red Queen's body, knowing that I would be seeing it often enough. Looking over my shoulder, I ascertained that the Hatter had yet to return. I moved to find the present box on the cluttered table. The Hatter hadn't tidied up in the box particularly at all. I could open it and close it as if I had never disturbed this mysterious prize to begin with. I cracked open a small gap so that nothing could come flying out. And? Do I really see it this early? Nothing escaped from the box. Instead, I heard a strange, strangled noise from whatever laid inside. A gurgling, drowning voice that caused chills to settle on the back of my neck. In one go, I took the lid off the box. Inside was a head. A bloodied head. The head seemed so familiar, but I couldn't quite make out the face, as if the box had just been jostled. I squinted. Spinning. The world was spinning. A sharp pain burst through my temple, and I rested the palm on my head to stop a growing, pulsing headache in my skull. I reached out a shaking hand to adjust the head in the box. Step, step, step. Footsteps interrupted me. I thought I only just said not to peek, Alice. The Hatter brandished a hammer in her hand. The head and face a glowing red, as if it had left on the stove. Cheaters get what cheaters deserve. I backed up, crashing into the table, nearly tripping on my own cloak. She raised her arm with the hammer in hand and... Whoa! Crack. Dead end! Ha! I didn't know I could die! Death number 1? What? Hold up. You planted dead ends? Okay. I have to say this. I love it when visual novels give you ways to die. Because if you don't give ways to die, then I'm sitting here just like, this leads to that. This is no consequence. There's consequences. I love consequences. Yes. It's so good. Script scene, 61%. Well, that was it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. No, we're going to keep going. What? This is great. Okay. Again. Down the rabbit hole. I do love the down the rabbit hole music. It's so pretty. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. this time, we're gonna listen to the Hatter. And then we're gonna skip. Okay, last time we did that. This time we're gonna find the Queen. Remembering that the Cheshire Cat mentioned the White Queen, I decided to give the Queen a second visit. I thought I could easily replicate the route to her garden, having only recently been there. However, the more I walked, the more apparent it became I was lost. I passed that tree to the right a handful of times already. I was going in circles, getting nowhere closer to this beautiful garden and its equally pretty owner. I let out a sigh and chose a bush at random to walk through instead of following a path. My cloak saved me from being scratched by the leaves and branches of the and bushes. Came on the other side to a particularly large tree, a large bird cage. Hi! I spotted the White Queen inside the birdcage. Behind her was a limb, a leg. Hello? We meet again, Alice. I hadn't expected that I would be trapped here again. I'm a little embarrassed that you're seeing me like this. Is that right? You're a little embarrassed? I contemplated just asking for the leg and leaving. No, that would be a terribly foul thing to do, especially to a pretty person like her. Although in a way, it almost seemed like a good idea to leave a pretty bird locked up in a cage, all for oneself. After all, how would you catch her if you let her go free? Was that the Red Queen's right leg? So it would appear. To find the Red Queen, you may have to find her parts as well. Even so, she should be able to help you find your way back home. I'm sorry, Alice. Don't apologize. The key to my prison is atop the towering tree. Would you help me open this cage, Alice? Yes, of course. Agreeing to the request, I walked over to the tall tree that the White Queen gestured toward. How tall it was, I couldn't say. If I angled my head and squinted, I could see the glimmering of a silver key at the high branch above. I circled the tree, the front and the back, the sides, left and right. They all looked equally hard to climb. As I pondered on how to scale the tree, a little bird approached. Very cute little bird, who I'm about to murder. Trigger warning. Chirp, chirp. So I remember going, no? Why? Now we're gonna go down that route. Welcome to the DaintyTank channel. I do not condone this. With all of the talking animals and not quite animals in Wonderland, I had an inkling that this one might speak as well. Perhaps it spoke French, like a French bird. Bonjour? Bonjour. Unfortunately, I knew little French. My practice had grown rusty, so much that the tutors would be ashamed, but I tried to pull out at least one more phrase. Où est mon chat? Chat is cat. Chirp! I must have said the wrong words as the poor bird began to tremble. Parlez-vous anglais? Yes, chirp, chirp, chirp. Cats? No cats, please. What are you doing? What are you doing? Chirp, chirp. Trying to get that key up there. What are you doing, little French bird? Chirp, just having lots of fun today. Not doing anything in particular. Not doing anything in particular. Now that the Red Queen, Her Majesty, is missing, Wonderland is so much wonderful. We can play and frolic all we want. Chirp, chirp. Auntie Bird got in trouble for breaking Her Majesty's laws. Now there's no more Auntie Bird. Chirp, chirp. I was so sad, so sad. Her Majesty was so scary, so scary. You wouldn't telling me, right? Chirp. Chirp, chirp. You look like a nice person. Chirp. Much nicer than her. Much nicer than her. Oh, I see. I'll help you with the key. Chirp. Puffing out its little chest, the bird flaps its wings and took off upward into the sky. It flew and flew and it flew, but soon enough became tired. Now reaching the key on the tree, the bird faltered and fluttered back down. It dipped its head in disappointment. Sorry, I couldn't do it. Chirp. This is where I pet the bird. Last time. Now, warning. This is a graphic. Here we go. The more it chirped, the worse its voice grated on my ears. I picked up the bird in one hand, thinking I should shut it up. You shouldn't offer things you can't accomplish. Chirp. Without thinking, I squeezed the bird in my hand. It let out a strangled cry and pecked at my skin it could hit, squirming, wriggling, before it went still between my fingers. Now my palm was dirty, dripping with bird. I shook up my hand as if it would help get rid of some of the filth, and wiped the rest of it on a handkerchief that surely had to throw away. After the failed first attempt at the key, I returned to the White Queen's side. She looked fitting in the cage, pretty like a flower, preserved forever in glass. Again, I thought that she was beautiful. Really, she was beautiful. That's true, Alice. Even so, I couldn't let her stay trapped, not to mention the Red Queen's leg. I wasn't able to find a way up. Do you have any ideas for what I should do, White Queen? Over there are some mushrooms. If you eat the ones to the left, you will grow. If you eat the ones to the right, you will shrink. I think they would be helpful. Magic mushrooms? I was hesitant to eat mushrooms picked from unknown wilderness, but I felt that I could trust the White Queen. Why, I didn't know. Well, this is Wonderland, isn't it? I had forgotten something important. The feeling of forgetting tingled in the back of my head whenever I saw the White Queen. Finding the mushrooms, she pointed out, I faced a choice. Last time I grew, this time I'll shrink. Eating mushroom from the right, I immediately began to shrink. The world around me swelled in size. I became tiny, so tiny I could disappear. Before I could look around, a gust of strong wind blew me from my feet. I picked myself up to my feet and saw a monstrous bird before me, looming over my body with a great shadow. No. I had been the one who shrank, so the bird was not monstrous. I was simply diminished. The ground trembles as I stepped towards me, as if to step on me. I rolled just out of the way. Big bird. Chirp, you killed her. Who again? Sheep! My unintentionally voiced question was a mistake. The bird lunged at me. I made a mad dash out of the way, just barely avoiding the hurtling mass that came my way. Just as I gasped to catch my breath, the clawed foot slammed down on me, a talon piercing through my shoulder. I heard a bone break. The bird grabbed me and threw me like a rag doll to the ground again, forcing the air out of my lungs. Pushing down on the screaming pain in my body, I focused on my racing heart and tried to get away, only to be hit by the bird again. I bit through my tongue in shock and choked out a mouthful of spit and blood. Its beak snapped around my one arm and tore. Rip. Ooh. The bird crashed down on my leg and pulled. Next went the other leg. This is what you get. It screamed with a mouthful of my blood, chucking my limbs across the grass. My remaining arm extended forward to grab the ground, to try to get away. My consciousness spun. I didn't know which way I was going. I just needed to get away. I needed to drag this body away somewhere. Everything turned so cold already. I was going to die. I was gonna die. The bird stepped on me with all of its weight, and with one, not two, 3 vicious stabs, chopped off the last arm into a pulp. Crack, squelch. The bird was a monster. Twisted my neck to look at the thing that would kill me. I was going to kill this thing if I had a chance. With one thrust, its beak gored through my skull. Splat. Oh, death 2. I am doing great at capturing all the dead ends. 62%. That was a bloody 62%. Okay. We're gonna grow. I ate a left mushroom and immediately began to grow. My line of sight rose higher and higher as began to bring sprout something. I once stopped growing. I could reach the top of the towering tree as if frantically my clothes grew around me. Pinch the key. Okay, we're gonna go. So there's not much else there that happens, just like I had to return to my garden, but my invitation is always open. Okay. Letting out a yawn, I realized I needed a place to sleep for the night. This is where I used to sleep with the Hatter. Thought back to the parties who had helped me on my adventures to gather the Red Queen's dismembered parts. Surely I could find one of them. This is where we go to the Queen. Thinking to the eternal tea time of Hatter, I decided that seeking out the White Queen would be more productive. I dropped the lamb off at Hatter's place, thinking that bringing a piece of dismembered person's body to the White Queen again would be quite appropriate. I walked to the White Queen's garden. This is a pretty place, and she's a pretty person as before. She was watching the distance, looking at I did not know what. Wondered if my gaze toward her was like her gaze toward her object. Alice, you weren't the one she wanted. You weren't the one she wanted. What does that mean? Hello? Yes, but I was the one in front of her now. Good evening, Alice. It's almost time for dinner. Would you like to stay for a meal? Is it that time already? Her question made me realize the time once more. I'd love to. Before long, a beautiful array of foods found its way onto the table, carried over by what seemed like magic, but was in fact little fairy lights. First came the appetizer. I put a forkful in my mouth and tasted nothing. Bland. I haven't felt particularly hungry since I came to this world. Felt little thirst, little hunger, little urge to expel waste. All inconvenient facets of mortal life. Perhaps this really was a dream. I know. This world must appear like a place of dreams. Picked at the food, my fork clinking against the plate as I moved things back and forth. She looked like a doll, perfectly practiced table manners, indifferent expressions. Nothing told me what she felt, only that she would complete this task of eating. The main course arrived soon enough. This was also bland. Silence fell upon the dinner table. Certainly speaking too much during a meal was frowned upon by some, but this was much too polite. What sort of upbringing did she have? A queen was a queen, but I knew not which country she ruled, nor what courtiers she had. The White Queen was a mystery. That's a true one. My fork and knife clinked listlessly against the plate. Eventually dinner came to a close with dessert. As the little cakes were delivered to the table by the same servants I picked up at the sight of sweets. I took a bite. Is it also bland? The cake tasted too light. I looked down at the cake in disappointment. I heard a choking cough. Water. Psst. The cakes must have gotten switched. Oh no. Oh no? How so? A sweeter one for Alice and a lighter one for me was the plan, but with the cakes decorated the same, someone must have mixed them up. This was surprisingly thoughtful of her, although her plans backfired. I felt the tinge of her guilt for wondering if she had tried to feed me something strange. I could still eat it. Oh, I don't mean to tell you you should eat something I've taken a bite of. Well, no, I'll have them replaced. She called the fairies over again and they left with the cakes. When they returned, they delivered new desserts, a vanilla ice cream sort of thing, to the table. Picked up a spoon and watched as the utensil sank into this white sweet. When I moved to take a scoop, I placed a spoonful in my mouth. Chili, sweet, and creamy melted on my tongue. Delicious. I'm glad. I am unused to strong flavors. Although I liked them as a child, I can no longer recall the feelings I had back then. How long has that been? Like, how long? I had a time not too long ago where I was not allowed to eat many things or do many things at all. I feel apologetic to the chef. It's just that I've become so accustomed, so even though she's gone, you were forced to barely survive because the Red Queen. Got it. Oh. Were you in, like, solitary? She looked somewhere far away, but soon refocused onto me. Her ice cream began to melt on her spoon, and she unconsciously stirred it like a cup of tea. To live, one must eat and drink. That is what it means to be human. Human. I don't enjoy eating, but I rather do like tea. Should I be considered halfway there? Although, it's also something I picked up from her. You must feel bored listening to me talk about this, Alice. No, not at all. I want to know more about you. If I had to choose if I liked or disliked the White Queen, I would have to say I liked her. Deep within my heart, I held an inexplicable emotion toward her that I could not identify. That I had no reason to feel. After the desserts were done with, we talked a little more, mostly about useless little things. It's late now. Would you like to stay for the night? I would appreciate it. I've no place to be or go anyhow. After a while more, we departed from our position in the garden. She brought me to a guest room, walking before me under the starry night sky. Good night, Alice. Will you head to bed then as well? In a while, if I can. Little voice told me that she couldn't sleep very well. To live, one must also sleep, White Queen. Good night. Upon hitting the bed, I felt a haze of fatigue overcome my mind. My eyelids grew heavy, and I fell into a deep slumber. Surely I was dreaming within a dream. I dreamed of blood. The next day, and the day after, I continued my search for the Red Queen's bones. Okay, so now we get back to Skip. Ooh, alright. If it would make the Hatter happy, I didn't see why not to play along. Arm. Setting aside her puppet friends, she extended an open palm toward me. I proceeded to commit laissez majestic by tossing the limb over the Hatter's tea table to her. Took a seat in the armchair, seeing her clumsy blah blah blah. Skip. Okay, so last time I checked out this party. Kind of still want to check out the party. Took out the invitation. Yes. And then bring a companion. And then the companion is White Queen. I invited the White Queen, feeling that she would be most fitting a guest to a noble's ball. White Queen, would you accompany me to a ball? I will attend if you would like me to. I'm not much for parties, but just this once with you would be alright. To whose ball and when? The Duchess's ball. The White Rabbit gave me an invitation to what she claimed to be an endless party. Dug in the invitation and let the White Queen see. Duchess's ball? Then we should be in no hurry. Alice, would you like to try on a dress? It seems fitting for... We are going to a ball, but you may not have one as you aren't from around these parts. At my nod, she had a whole wardrobe of dresses and assortments brought out and let me try them on. Lace and frills, silk and cotton, ribbons of various colors and glittering gems. What a variety! Not a single thing had been touched or worn before, as if unwanted gifts. They were pretty, but not quite her. I must understand why children like to doll up pretty girls. I'm not particularly... We tried a number of different outfits. I changed into the next dress, a red dress, feeling the comfortable fabric on my skin. Strolled around to feel the dress. Red suits you, Alice. Oh, it does? Does it? For a moment, her gaze went far, far away. She dissociated because of trauma. But perhaps not today. Must I wear a dress? I did not plan to be here for long enough to deal with the consequences, even if I had particularly offended anyone. My plan was, and continued to be, gather the Red Queen to leave. Therefore, if it was to align her gaze, then I preferred not to wear a dress. No, you need not worry about a dress. If you not prefer to, the Duchess won't be bothered. I did say that I could see the future, did I not? Let me reassure you that, Alice. She, too, seemed relieved that I chose not to wear this dress. The dress must have been tailored for someone special, as it did not match the White Queen at all. Changed back to my own clothes, feeling my cloak snug around me. This suits me best. In exchange for that fun, will you allow me to do your makeup? With what makeup? Where did you pull this from? I don't see why not. Fairy servants lugged over our makeup kit, bowing to me and her as they set up down. I looked at her face, the curve of her jawline, the shape of her lips. Seeing her up close, I felt a little flustered because she was so pretty. With tools given, I traced over her features. Alice, was she not already perfect? What was there to even cover up and make more beautiful? Truly, this was my white bird. Whose? Not wanting to ruin her features, I drew very little on, only dusting a light layer of blush on her cheeks. My hand hesitated. She shifted when the brush tickled her. She leaned in towards my touch, looking as if she would kiss me, and caused my heart to flutter and the blood to rush to my head. Fiddling with the makeup tools, I retreated. That should be all. Alice. I didn't poke you, did I? I felt not a thing at all. Alice, you are perfect. You are in fact a very gentle person. A fairy servant brought her a mirror, called with a simple gesture from the White Queen. Looking upon my handiwork, I found that she looked no different from before, pretty and white. Still, she seemed pleased. As I decided not to dress up, the White Queen chose to do the same. Okay, shall we go? I extended a hand towards her. Certainly. She called a carriage, a pretty crystal thing, whose coachman sat invisibly with but a shadow. The horses, too, were nowhere to be seen, like fairies. We entered the carriage and off we went. I looked outside the window, seeing familiar yet unfamiliar scenery, some places I had never passed by, even when coming to her garden. Our ride stopped amongst the number of carriages. I alighted, helping her down, and we walked up to the Duchess's manor. A guard stopped us at the entrance. Halt! Please show your invitation card. Handed the guard the card. He looked it over, glanced at me and the White Queen before stiffening in response. Your Majesty, the White Queen! Making eyes towards another guard, the guard gestured and led us inward, few steps through the entranceway. The guard's fellow quickly darted inside as if to report the appearance of a rare visitor. Okay, so in the Henner's route, we had to hand over literally the arm of the queen, the Red Queen, or Alice's arm. But here, the White Queen is a big deal. To enter a gross... Oh, okay. The arm will be returned to you. An arm? A limb? Guard nodded. Yes, I am afraid I cannot make an exception for anyone. Okay. I'm gonna offer my arm. I looked toward the White Queen. Alice, why not chop off the white bird's arm? You had already taken one royalty's arm, so another's arm was not much more. Shook my head to dispel the thoughts. Would this arm suffice? I extended my arm to the guard, ignoring that the White Queen tugged on my cloak while shaking her head to tell me to rethink. The guard nodded, leading us to the side, and having me keep the arm outstretched above a table, he retrieved a clean, shining blade. The blade glittered with the sun like the moon. Slash. With a clean cut, my arm came straight off. It fell on the table with a small bounce. Sharp pain hit me the next moment. Stumbled back into the White Queen, gritting my teeth as blood rushed out of the wound, dripping red. I reached out, a cold hand to touch my shoulder. I squeezed my eyes shut in the expectation of a jolt of pain to run down that now severed arm. However, the pain never arrived. A numbness filled my flesh. The red seemed to slow. A White Queen. A doctor arrived with some sort of medicine that she applied to the wound. Once the bleeding ceased, she bandaged my injury, warning me not to remove the bandage before I re-obtained my arm. She made a respectful bow toward the White Queen. Alice, could you reattach such a limb? You weren't a lizard, but a mere human. A little lightheaded, I shook off the question. The guard retrieved my arm, placing it into a sealed box before handing it off to another servant, who took it away to a safe place. Whew, alright. Please enter, esteemed guests. The guard began to lead us in. Alice, that was not necessary. What was on your mind before you offered your arm? Nothing in particular. Like taking your arm? We arrived at Duchess's ballroom. Although the hostess was nowhere to be found, servants milled around the floor with the refreshments for the guests. The quartet performed in front. Food sat at the tables on the sides of the room. All were faceless people dressed up like clowns. The moment the White Queen stepped foot into the room, all heads turned towards her. Oh god, a horde approached us, circling around the White Queen, so that she could not easily escape, yet they kept their distance as if gazing upon a rare zoo animal. Greetings to your majesty, the White Queen. Have you been well? We have nothing but gratitude for all you have done for this kingdom in the face of tyranny. Her majesty was... Oh no. Was this still a difficult topic to speak of? You'll jinx it. If you speak of the devil will appear. Your Majesty, when you come visit the Maskedom, your white hair is as beautiful as snow today. No wonder you are so adored. Your beauty was such that even she was so enamored with your presence. She was, oh, we shouldn't speak of her. I wish I could touch your skin. You did us all a good deed. You did us all a good deed. You. A paragon of virtue. The heavens must sing your praises. You are truly the queen of the divine right to watch over our wonderland. It must weigh heavily on you to have had to take such drastic measures. You totally dismembered him. Oh my goodness, it was the White Queen! But what are your plans now on the empty throne? The rabbit, an animal, still thinks that she can be found. This is what we get for letting a vermin rise up the ranks, but no one else wants to be in that position. Okay, one, you, fuck that, classist, racist, xenophobic, whatever, bullshit. Hell no. But also, rabbit is terrifying. Specifically terrifying. Just the white rabbit specifically as an individual. Fucking terrifying. You say that because you're incompetent. Truly this kingdom must fall into disarray, Your Majesty. Do you have any intentions for who should be delegated to rebuild Wonderland? You work so hard, so why not take a rest and let others do the dirty work? My husband has always says. Your husband isn't exactly here right now, Phyllis. Just felt like Phyllis. Wasn't he banned for making a ruckus? Ruckus? Your Majesty, please don't take offense, but I know a wonderful place, brilliant volcanic springs to recuperate from being locked away for so long. See, she was in solitary. If you'd like to consider my brother... White Queen? My hand brushing against hers. I was sick of hearing all the dribble leaking from the faceless crowd's mouths like half-chewed slop. She nodded. We must go see the Duchess now to talk about the matters of the Red Queen. Upon mention of the Red Queen from the White Queen's mouth, the pigs around the White Queen collectively gasped and took a few steps back. My pearls! Could it be? She nodded, ambiguously, causing them to scatter with one excuse or another. Soon, a servant approached, telling us that the Duchess was ready to meet us in the parlor, that we could head over there as soon as we wanted. I spoke too soon. Was that simply a bluff to make them back away? Yes. It may be just as well that we meet with the Duchess because you are searching for the Red Queen to find your way back home. Shall we, Alice? I followed the White Queen through the manor hallways, glancing left and right at familiar. Alice, the Duchess must have redecorated. Who was saying that? That's the Red Queen, isn't it? In your brain? Alice, the Duchess must have redecorated. What unspoken good deed had you done with that the swine, I mean those nobility, would not leave you alone, White Queen? Absolutely nothing. Like specifically dismembering you. She stopped. I stopped. The Duchess welcomes you. The guard before a room bowed and opened the door, letting us into the Duchess's parlor. Inside sat a featureless woman who hid her face. Instinct told me that she was ugly, yet I could not see anything. Not disfigurement nor beauty. I perceived her. She was the Duchess. Perceived her. Okay. I choose not to be perceived today. Thank you. Welcome, Your Majesty, the White Queen, and what name did you go by now? Yes, Alice. The Duchess looked at the White Queen before glancing towards me, returning a sense of pity towards us. Your heart is still entangled. Oh. You don't come to me for that advice, beloved White Queen. I believe you wanted to speak to me about our dearest Majesty, the missing Red Queen. Yes, it's Alice's matter. We told the Duchess about my circumstances. I fell into this world unknown, and I was seeking out the Red Queen in order to find a way home. We left out the part where the Red Queen was dismembered, but the Duchess already knew. You are searching for the Red Queen, but the Red Queen has been dismembered. To even request aid from her, she must assemble all of her pieces. As it happens, I have her left leg in my possession. In that case, would you give it to us? I will be giving it to a pair of guests at today's ball. It'd be unfair for me to hand it off to you when another pair would have had to show their prowess to earn the limb. I will offer something in exchange. Really? You've nothing to offer, nor have a true desire to meet our dearest Majesty again in this form or another. Of course, these are only my thoughts. Forgive me for assuming, but I cannot give you the limb like this. Rather than letting her offer something in exchange, would it not be better for me to do so as the person searching? What would convince you to give up the limb, Duchess? We'll hold a game today, and if you win, then the limb will be yours. A game? Yes, a game. Our dearest Majesty loved her games, even if they were too often cruel games with no winner, not even herself. I'm sure that Her Majesty, the White Queen, remembers. Will you not do me the favor, Duchess? No, not even for you, Her Majesty's most beloved. Her Majesty's most beloved. Ah. The White Queen looked away. Ah. Finding little more we could say to convince the Duchess, we left the Duchess's parlor, seen off to the door by her. We returned to the ballroom to wait. The quartet continued playing. The previous crowd saw the troubled look of the White Queen's face and decided not to approach, only watching her from afar. Dancing partners filled the floor. The White Queen eyed me as if she wanted to request something. When I turned to question her, she pretended to look at the refreshments. Do you like dancing? Just a normal amount. Just a normal amount, you know, that. You needn't feel restricted by me. I'll be fine by myself if you would prefer to have a dance, or a few now that you're here. Alice. What is it? May I invite you to dance with me? I won't be much good at dancing without an arm. Send my stump out from under my cloak. No! Waving it as a reminder, perhaps I've been too hasty earlier in chopping it off. Ah. No. No. But I wanted to dance. Ah! I really want that dance. You know what? We're gonna save. This is why we're hopping around. I'm gonna load. Yes. Offer the Red Queen's arm. An arm? A limb? Surely I had one that I could obtain from the Hatter. Glanced towards the White Queen, thinking of how I had never mentioned the Hatter in my agreement. That agreement, blasphemy and lèse majesté. For reasons unknown, I felt strongly that the White Queen knew more about the Red Queen's dismemberment than I did. Perhaps she did not lie about knowing the future. Alice, of course she did. Let's go ask the Hatter. The Hatter? The one who lives in the woods and cannot sing? Are there many Hatters in the Wonderland? Perhaps there were. Just not many satisfactory enough. Without asking further questions, she followed my lead to go find the Hatter. Oh, I got them both. Arriving at the Hatter's place, I found the Hatter having her usual tea time chatting with the puppets in her hands. She spotted us, sitting up straighter in her seat, seeming surprised at seeing the White Queen. Darkness stirred in her mismatched eyes as she saw my guest. Your Majesty, the White Queen? No room! 3, 4, 5. 5's enough for all the people in this world. Don't be so rude to Her Majesty the White Queen. You wouldn't want your heads to go flying again. Again. I didn't bother to take a seat this visit, knowing that if I were to lounge on my armchair, I would stay here with the Hatter for much too long. We weren't here for tea, Hatter. A real shame. But rather an arm, preferably detached from anything else. Yes. The Hatter looked down at her own limbs. One of that person's would suffice. We only need to borrow one for a bit. An arm would be appreciated, Hatter. Is that so? Your Majesty, would you like to borrow a limb? I'm surprised. After all, you were the one who did that. Did you lose it? What I mean to ask is, did you lose your trash? Hatter in the burn! I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't misplace my trash. I just put it where it belongs. I forgot that was supposed to be a secret. I suppose I shouldn't show my gratitude and instead reflect on my rudeness. My sincerest apologies. Sorry, ma'am. Didn't mean to mention the choppity chop. Our heads haven't been the same since they fell off the first time. A bit of an open secret, don't you think? I ask you not to speak of that matter. I understand. Her lips are sealed. Zip tighter than tight. Regarding that arm, Hatter. Of course, Alice. You were the one who found it. The Hatter hopped over to the dog cage, kicked it open, pulled out an arm like a bear fishing from the stream. She held it far from Eris. It began to flail and chucked it my way over the table. The limb flew an uneven arc through the air, forcing me to dash toward the piece of meat, just barely caught it in my arms, nearly stumbling into the White Queen, who stood near me. Her arm. The White Queen's eyes bored into the severed arm with a distorted intensity. Uh-huh. Yep. Bring it back later, Alice. I will. Saying goodbye to the Hatter, we returned to the Duchess's manor. The guard greeted us, and we handed over the arm. We retrieved. His gaze lingered on the White Queen after asserting the validity of the arm as an entrance fee. Even he must have noticed that she seemed reluctant to part with the limb. The guard handed over our entrance fee off to a servant who put it in the sealed box and took it away. Please enter, esteemed guests. And then this is what we've seen. Okay. May I invite you to a dance? I took her hand, and we went towards the dance floor. The next song started. That's what I wanted! I wanted the dance! I don't care, I want the dance! I will go back in time. Next song started. Tap, tap, step, step, a practice sequence of footwork moved across the room. At the rhythm of the music, we danced while gazing into each other's eyes. Without even saying what we should dance, we just danced. I took Alice's part. She took the White Queen's part. There was nothing more. Feeling ambitious, I twirled her around, chuckling as she grew a little flustered when I caught her. I saw a strange expression, as if she had expected something different, but the smile that floated in her eyes reassured me that I hadn't done wrong. The White Queen was always looking somewhere else, perhaps to the future, perhaps to the past, perhaps to a person who wasn't here, even though we were here right now. This was our dance, alone. Thank you. No, I enjoyed that. Can we dance together again one day? Perhaps one day we should. The music stopped along with the dancing. Aha! Alright. So I'm gonna pause, because we're about to figure out what happens next. So with this, thank you for watching, thank you for hanging out. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. I'm having a ball. But you should definitely subscribe if you haven't. Send it to your friends if you haven't. You know, do the things, do the stuff. And with that, I love you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye!